Just in case you're wondering if you're at the right meeting, this is our downtown Salinas community meeting. And I want to thank everybody for coming tonight. You know, one of the great things about our downtown and some of the discussion in the last weeks as we approach major improvements to our downtown is that regardless of whether you have strong opinions one way or strong opinions another, everybody in this room cares about Salinas and our downtown. It's truly our jewel. It's been there a lot longer than any of us, and I mean any of us as I look around the room, and it'll be around for a long time after. I want to start by acknowledging Councilmember Tony Guerrera. Thank you for being here today. We've got several board members from the SCCIA, which is the Downtown Improvement Association. I want to recognize, where's Fred at right there? Thank you for being here today and tonight, Fred. Also Kevin Dayton, thank you for being here very, very much. And our great friends, CSUMB, Enid has been helping, so thank you very much for being here, Enid. And then several members of our city staff who you may hear from as we go through the night. Certainly Dawn Reynolds, our acting public works director. Megan, she is our community development director. Andrew, one of our engineers in transportation, and none other than James Serrano, the king of traffic calming, something like that. So needless to say, the agenda for tonight. Hopefully everybody got a survey. We want to hear from you on our downtown. Those results will be typed up and reported out at a future meeting. I also want to encourage anybody that wants to ask a question tonight to write legibly and clearly on the 3x5 cards. If you don't have a pencil or a 3x5 card, wave your hand and Enid or I will provide one to you. Looks like Ginger needs one right over there. And then I'd also say, I hope that you're ready to participate. This is one meeting of many. There will be a lot of engagement over the next year as Salinas works to do what it can to improve our downtown. So with that, we're going to have a welcome from our mayor, presentation from some folks on the city staff, followed by some words from CSUMB and SCCIA, and then the discussion begins. So with that, help me in welcoming our mayor, Mr. Joe Gunda.
First of all, thanks everyone for being here. I'm going to answer a couple of questions before I start. My phone's rang off the hook. I heard yesterday, while I was off on my cell phone, they called my cell phone and told me that I'd spent $12 million. That was kind of amazing because we haven't spent $12 million. That was part of the process. Our first portion we spent a lot of money in the beginning to do an engineering plan to talk about if this is feasible, what will work, what won't work. And we need a lot of community input before we ever get to spending the money. The council voted, it wasn't unanimous. There are still a lot of questions, even at the council level. Where are we going with this, and do we need other streets paved? Of course we do. We're a city that hasn't paved streets in 15 years maybe, or longer. So we understand that from the city perspective. So what this is all about is, we are still at the stage of how do we make our city better? How do we improve what's going on downtown? How do we get the businesses to be thriving? How do we get a place where our residents feel comfortable coming? That's what this is all about. So, no, we haven't spent $12 million, and I can guarantee you that the council would be in an uproar because we are still got a lot of discussions at our level, but we're still taking input from the community, and that's really what counts is what do we get from our citizens, and we are listening, trust me. And some of the messages aren't very kind, and others have great stories to tell about why we should do this. I was here when the streets were two ways. I was here when they made them one way. So I understand that. Yes, there are a couple of us that are rather old that remember that. Don't put your hand up, Fred. We remember that because we were here and we saw this occur. And every time something like this happens, the one thing I always hear before we start is, this is going to be the plan of plans. We couldn't ask for anything better. So here we are, coming up with the new plan of plans. What we want is, we want something that works for everybody. It's not about me. It's not about Councilmember McShane, Councilmember Guerrera. It's not about the staff, it's about what the community wants. So as we move through this process, please be very open about telling us, what do you want? This is your city. We're just fortunate enough to be elected and be helping try to get the process started. And that's where we are with this plan. So as we move into this tonight, your input for our staff is very important. Don Reynolds will tell you, I nagged him on, I said, we need more community input. What does the community want? What are the property owners? What are the businesses? What do the residents want? That's what counts. So tonight, that's where we need to go. As far as I'm concerned, you're going to hear more of how this works, and we need to all work on this together. Are we all going to be happy? I doubt that very seriously. It's not Christmas, and you're all not going to get what you want, trust me. As life goes on, that's the way it is. Councilmember, it's all yours. Let's go forward.
Thank you, Mayor. So a few things. Again, it's a process. We want to hear from you. I realize that most of the folks in this room work full-time. Most of the folks in this room don't have all the time in the world to monitor and really keep up with what's going on in downtown. So I'll offer just a few background visuals, I guess, observations on my part that I think will lead up to some of the commentary tonight. First and foremost, I attended my first Old Town Salinas meeting in 1999. That was an organization that existed for a long time, and it represented merchants in downtown, similar to a chamber of commerce in some ways. Though it was mandatory to pay your dues, not everybody did. There was about 120, maybe more, thousand a year that the Old Town Association had to pay an executive director, do a little bit of marketing, and for the most part, that was one heck of a job. I mean, if a council member type of a role in the community is hard, an Old Town executive director is really hard. Generally speaking, as a business owner, I can say it's tough. It's tough. If your vendors are getting you, there's not enough customers, the cost of water or power is hard. Being a business owner is tough. And being a business owner in downtown is tough. And for years and years, my observation was the city's not doing enough. So about 6 years ago, maybe 7, the City Council included downtown as one of its critical goals for the city. We started investing time and energy and really looking to how we could improve it. And one of the things that came about outside of the Renaissance partners or outside of some of the just visits to other really well-run downtowns was to move towards a property-based improvement association. So getting away from elective, merchant-based membership similar to a chamber to a point where property owners, some of which are in this room tonight, would actually tax themselves. And they'd have additional funds for security and for improvements, whether that be visual, lighting, you name it. And that succeeded. About 18 months ago, that happened. And our executive director for the Improvement Association is right here tonight. Where's Ken? Wave your hand. There he is, right there. You can get him after the meeting. Anyhow, it's been an 18-month experiment. And as you talk to some folks and you talk to others, it could be going well, it could be going better. And believe me, these folks are motivated, they're listening, and they're doing everything they can to be better today than they were yesterday. The fact of the matter is, the district, which is now larger than Old Town was, has more money to deal with. They're able to do some creative things like borrow against future revenues to improve lighting or even do something even cooler. Well, along those lines, additional planning, additional efforts to reach out to the community over the period of about 3 years with more than 15 or 16 meetings. There were listening sessions and planning, and at the end of the day, we had a clearer picture for what our downtown could be. And ultimately, some folks would say, gosh, you've over-consulted this. You've asked for too much. You've wasted resources. Well, if there's one thing I've learned in government is you need to be inclusive. You need to include people's opinions. And you need to do the planning because it's a public space. And sometimes that comes under fire. It takes too long. Just talk to anybody here that's dealt with the city of Marina and their planning department. It can take a while. The city of Salinas can take a while. But that's because big structures, changes to public spaces can impact people, and hence the public process. So ultimately, all that planning, and I know it takes a long time and it costs money, leads us to where we are now. With downtown as one of our key goals, the City Council has gone about working with the county, Measure X, our own city capital budget, to come about a downtown improvement plan. And we're going to learn about that tonight. We're going to learn about that tonight from the authorities. And not just that, we'll have experts on our staff, like community development and transportation, that can speak to some of the real challenges and benefits. At the end of the day, this is a public process. The City Council's allocated funds for planning. And in the next year, we're going to plan. We're going to talk about what our downtown can be. And ultimately, a year from now, we'll go about improvements. Words like ripping up and tearing out and wasting this. You know, I got to tell you, there's a lot of penny pinchers in this room. And I can speak for myself in saying I don't want to waste public dollars. I don't want to waste public dollars. I want to make sure that our dollars are used at a highest and best use. And so that's where the public and safeguarding, not just from the part of the city council and staff, but also from organizations like SCCIA and others will help. So that's kind of some background. I know that there's been a lot of chatter, and not everybody's on Facebook. Not everybody snaps. Not everybody's as active as some in the audience when it comes to these sorts of formats. That's why we're using paper tonight. Paper needs to be included. Community meetings need to be included. And I can just certainly say on behalf of the City Council and as the representative for this area that I look forward to these meetings. We want to plan and plot for our future together. And as you see opportunities for input, chime in. The only thing I would say is just be respectful about it. A lot of times some of these attacks, certainly on social media, can be personal. You know, leave people's appearance, leave people's background, leave people's choice of pet in their home out of this. These sorts of things are brought up on media, and it's you know, it is what it is. So with that, a few other things that I'll just point out because we've had some more VIPs walk in. Joel Panzer's here with his wife. Joel is on the board for SCCIA, and I also want to recognize, well, we have Yolanda Hayes, she's on our Traffic and Transportation Commission. Other commissioners, Ginger Pierce is on our Measure V oversight. It's really exciting to see, and Maureen Ruck is on our Measure G oversight, so thank you for being here as well. So with that, I say and there's Wes.
Airport Commission.
Is on the Airport Commission. Thank you very, very much. I'm sure we'll get to some more introductions as we go through the night. So with that, Don Reynolds is here. You know, Don and I have worked together a long time. We're going to do our best to make sure that this is not click and babble. We're going to move through this fast and give as good a background to what the blueprint is and what's before us, because a lot of work's gone into this. Help me in welcoming Don Reynolds.
Thank you very much, Steve. I do, just as a matter of syntax or not, I hope at this point, for those of us who worked on the vibrancy plan for some 18 months and 26 meetings and I hope this is not this plan, Steve. We're in the construction mode. We're in the design mode. And so I just want to get that message across. We are designing the improvements to Main Street because we've been under a lot of pressure to do so. Those who put in their blood, sweat, and tears for almost 2 years, 26, and I'll share some of those meetings with you. Some of these decisions have been made. And so I guess now is a good time to say I hate that decision. I wish the city never made it. But some of the decisions have been made. So this is our downtown with the Taylor Building in the center of our wedding ring. This is what we're married to. But I do want to say that before we talk about this project, I had a chance to bring forward to the Budget and Finance Committee almost a week ago a list of $84 million in projects that are spread throughout the city. They are the Laurel Extension and Constitution. We're on the road. They are millions of dollars of improvements that we're going to bond Measure X for, and coming to about $35 million next May. So this is just a small piece of the Public Works effort right now, just a small piece of the pie. And I just wanted to put it in context of the whole city, because obviously Public Works is here to serve the whole city. I was working next to the Maya Cinemas when they were building it in redevelopment back in 2005. And that's when we got the idea for our vibrancy plan. And so for those of you, this will be a rerun, and I'll try and get through it quickly. But we brought to the City Council this plan that resulted in the map in front of me that talks about returning one-way streets to two-way streets. It talks about turning our parking lots into housing development and bringing residents and people downtown, which is why Megan was here. They just did a wonderful housing study for our downtown to talk about how we would get to that end and bring people and create a 24/7 life environment here. So our objective is now part of the City Council strategic plan, and excellent infrastructure is part of that, and Main Street is the first step towards implementation. So the four themes of the vibrancy plan include creating a destination for downtown. I think we'll be fortunate when we have real serious parking problem downtown, then we'll know we've been successful. Managing parking resources. I just want to pause for a minute here. This meeting can talk about parking. We'd love to hear about that from you, but I think that could be a meeting to itself. So we would like to talk about parking in January. We're working on a governance system with the SCCIA. We want to make sure we're all on board, and then we can have a robust meeting just focusing on parking. But that is part of our downtown vibrancy plan, of course. Building the heart of Salinas is something I've heard in working with some of the merchants downtown that we're going to wipe the slate clean and the downtown will be boring. And well, we have a whole chapter committed to building a sense of place in our downtown. And then, of course, as I suggested with the housing, we would be stimulating development activity. So we opened the storefront in Mr. Gaddis's vacant bank building on the 300 block, and we had a design studio, and we had 26 community members that would come in and out. Everyone was welcome. It was a very inclusive process. We met 25 times over 2 years, and that's how we developed this robust plan of the downtown's future. There's another one subject that came out of this crowdsourcing is a good example. We have a Facebook page for the vibrancy plan, and people and place in Salinas are the themes that you see outstanding here. And so traffic calming, slowing down traffic, trying to turn the way downtown was designed for vehicles on its head and designing a downtown for people first, then for walking first, then for bicycles, and then eventually for vehicles. And that's that was one of the themes as we move forward. We have the 5 chapters of the downtown, reconnecting the downtown. So we have a couple controlled by the state highway, 183 and Highway 68. And it splits at Baton Park and it goes all the way around the downtown and then reconnects at John Street. These are 2 challenging areas because they're controlled by Caltrans. So if we're going to start returning one-way streets to 2-way streets, we're going to start working with the streets that we can work on now. And that's obviously, we've had great success on the 100 block, and the intent is to follow that through with the 200 block and 300 block, and then reconnecting, working with Caltrans to possibly adopt. We have a resolution right now looking at the feasibility of adopting a portion of 183 so the city has complete control. We haven't gone that far with Highway 68 yet. That's another adventure, but 183 is key to changing Salinas Street and Monterey Street as well as Main Street to 2-way streets again. Parking, managing parking resources. Is the parking district, the parking strategy that we're coming forth with to the council in January, and then creating that sense of place. We had, as Steve has mentioned more than once, a very well-known author, Peter Kijiyama, come and speak to us about what is the heart of Salinas and what is a good sense of place. And one thing that comes to mind was some of the crazy fun things that he was suggesting to our vibrancy plan steering committee. For example, after the Bruin building burned down, I recall the aquarium had a huge octopus on the top of it, and wouldn't it be great if we had just stuck that octopus in the middle of the Bruin building and just, instead of making it a site for sore eyes the way it is now, just making it something fun, something that we could remember. And this is the kind of ideas that we're talking about, whether it be art, whether it be a history, whether it be statuary, whether it be something that when you go to Salinas, your kid remembers it, and I think if your kid remembers it, everyone else will too. So that's part of building the sense of place. And then our catalyst activities, stimulating development. You see some of that happening now. Our historic reuses, we've had some proposals with the Rabobank building and the Solano family of turning that into condominiums. We've seen that with the Oddfellows building, where the Taylor drove to convert that second floor into condominium. Those are great examples of catalyst activities that are already moving forward. And then the implementation of policies and a capital improvement program. So what we're here tonight to talk about is our capital improvement program. And these are some of the projects that came from the vibrancy plan. And these are the same projects that are shown on that map, or the same projects that are shown on this map. And there it is, Main Street, conversion to 2-way operation, Market Street. We have the proposal to underground Market Street and bring the Baton Park at the grade level. We'll have to find some money to do that, but it's on the list. Lincoln Avenue, we could not change Salinas Street or offer Salinas Street next to the Taylor building. It was already designed. We have to maintain the 1-way street there, but the 2-way street would begin south of Gavilon and continue down to where it connects with John Street. And so we've had a number of requests from the SCCIA and from others. What have you done to implement the vibrancy plan? I don't see any changes yet. Losing my patience, and I've worked really hard on that plan. What have you done? And so these are some of the things that we have done. We've, Public Works assumed parking enforcement from the police department in November 2016. A year later, we've written over 20,000 parking tickets. I've received 4 of them myself. I know it works. My wife borrows my car, and so I drive for Prius in order to have my little sticker. And we're trying to increase that and make it more effective. Of course, the downtown was the first place that happened. Their offices are located at the Intermodal Transportation Center, i.e. the train station. And so, of course, this is where the most heaviest enforcement is. But we are spreading that throughout the rest of the city now and trying to include weekends and evenings. The target housing market analysis, the Community Development Department, Megan and her staff completed it in July 2017. We have a number of parking lots, city-owned parking lots in the downtown, much like the Salinas Renaissance Partners had identified great opportunities. The city owns 40% of the property downtown. How do we make better use of that? But the twist on the Salinas Renaissance Partners were they just wanted parking for their projects. And our plan includes parking to replace that for the existing merchants and then developing enough on top of that. We believe there's enough space, but those lots are a little bit harder. So right now the focus from this plan came out to be, and correct me if I'm wrong, Mayor, but lot 12 is a city-owned lot, the city employees park, and we're not ready to dive into lot 3 behind the Golden Fish and lot 5 behind the Rabobank. Those would be much more challenging projects to tackle. But maybe if we can get one started on our own city lot, we can stimulate the development there. And the whole idea is to have stacked parking so that parking on the lot across the street from us here on lot 8 would include some parking for lot 12, which is right behind me. It's the one right across from MST. So those are some of the ideas that came from the target housing market analysis, and the parking plan dovetails with that. We're going to be updating parking permit fees. Just recently we updated our bail schedule. We have 3 validation machines working downtown. We need a policy to manage our parking validation program. And we need to upgrade and update our parking management plan in the Monterey Street Garage. I think most people would agree that it could be a cleaner, friendlier place for parking. So those are all on our radar for the immediate future. I agree. That is so glad she's here. Let's see, where were we? Alice House Street Corridor project is moving forward. Last Tuesday night, the City Council approved an agreement to design the Alice House Street Corridor, which is safety improvements from Blanco Road all the way to Front Street. And that includes, of course, the 2 intersections at Salinas and at Lincoln, 3 intersections at Lincoln, Salinas, and Main Street. And so the very first project out of the door for that one will be Alice L and Main Street. So the 2 projects intersect right here in the downtown that we're taking off together. And then we have, of course, this project, our Main Street Improvement Project. So the Main Street project development process is, again, implementation of the downtown vibrancy plan. We've had workshops just on this project, and many of you have been there. I recognize many of your faces. We talked about what was good and what was bad about it. No palm trees, please, and some other few things that we've learned. And we've also had other topics such as, are you going to take out all the old trees? And why do you have to pull up the sidewalks and put in new ones? And you know, those things will become self-evident. I think it was during our hearing with the City Council when a member of the steering committee came to us and came to the council and said the infrastructure in the downtown is breaking, and we had complaints about dead plants. That's because we couldn't find the water main, so we had to turn the water off. And so we've got to pull up the sidewalks to redo that infrastructure down there and then build on top of that. So that's some of the things that have come out of our public meetings concerning this project in particular. These are some examples of the main, of the primary recommendations. So safety and security is one that I've heard Mr. Singh talk about. Good lighting, we've done our best. The trees are better than they ever have been. The festoon lighting is finally in place. Fred the Young, it took us 2 years to do that, but it's there. And then we talked about patio dining and use of the sidewalks. One of the things that came out of our last meeting was there was a picture of picnic tables or umbrellas like the lady sitting in the center. And when we put the P-bed together, Marcos from Little Italy in San Diego thought this was a great idea, and he was sharing it with the interim board as we move forward. But you know, people always, the feedback I heard anyway after we surveyed the community was the homeless people are going to sleep on those, you know, there's going to be this and that and vagrants and they're going to get misused. But when we talked to the Lily, it was actually the PBID and the Lily that took care of those. Their staff, their maintenance staff brought them out every morning, put them away every night, and they're the ones that shepherded those. So, you know, if the SCCIA does not have the resources or it's not on their strategic plan right now, something like that wouldn't go forward without the full cooperation of that board. One thing that they also did in Little Italy was create a marquee, a beautiful archway across their main street, and they actually sell that. So when they have a bike race in downtown Little Italy in San Diego, they get $5,000 just for having a picture on the flyer. So how does the property improvement district make money in San Diego? It's not just the assessment district, it's a farmer's market, it's promotional fees, it's a balance of all these different fees that have to come together as the district grows older. And so we thought this would be a great idea, and working with Rotary, our downtown Rotary, we were able to come up with some really cool ideas. Peter Casavan contributed to some of these, and I know that Lino worked on some of these as well. In addition, we have wayfinding, which are critical. There's an example from Marina, but where do I find a parking lot? Where do I find public transit? Where do I find City Hall? These would all be identified and moving forward. These kiosks would mark each of the three intersections for Main Street at Gabalon, Alice South, and San Luis Street. And then we go in with some new poured concrete. So in an intersection like Main and Gabalon, perhaps we could preserve those existing mature trees. If we can, we will. We'll have to see as we identify where the infrastructure is. The as-built plans have yet to be found, so we're on our own digging through the dirt looking for those. This is in the two pictures existing and proposed are the one-way street versus the two-way street. So we now have existing with angle parking on each side, and it is proposed and been approved since 2015 that we convert that back to two-way streets where we have parallel on one side and angle parking on the other. The way that actually rolls out is in design right now, but we're trying to do our best to move forward with the two-way street. So we'd like to know how you feel about that.
Wow.
So,
We'll get to that.
yeah, we'll get to that. Thank you. So this is a picture of the one-way streets in the downtown, and I'm sorry it's hard to read, but I want you to know that we didn't just look at Main Street, we had to look at how all the streets were connected. And so this is section 2.2 out of the vibrancy plan where that study occurred. So you can see how what we're trying to implement goes all the way back to this page in the vibrancy plan. So this is a new slide that we haven't shared before. Thank you, Andrew, for your help with this. And it's a frequently asked questions page. How long will construction take for this project? The majority of construction likely will take place over 2 years. It wouldn't begin until the fall of 2018. So we still have a year of diagrams to be working on and drawings to come up with. And so construction crews will work in small portions of the project at a time, requiring less work and space so that the public space and business can occur at the same time construction goes on. So we're not going to come in and wipe out 3 blocks of Main Street and then take 2 years to rebuild it. We're going to take small chunks at a time in increments and construct it in a way as friendly as we can to the merchants. So change is never good, and I commended Jim Sang last time I talked to him because he's been through it. He's been through the construction of Maya. He's been through the conversion of the 100 blocks. He's been through the construction of Taylor. And he said just because he has a back door, people can get into his restaurant. But that's just an example of it's worth it, and when we're done. So when the Taylor project started, everyone wanted Taylor to build their building, and then they started building, and it's like, yikes, this is lousy, the street's closed, it's dusty, it's dirty. And so Ken Steen, I think, helped right away, working with various Swenson builders, to come up with weekly newsletters and weekly progress, and hey, we're going to close parking on this side of the street and that side of the street. So we've talked about that as a team. We talked about how we would try and have a presence on Main Street and weekly meetings and weekly communications about what are we looking forward to, what's coming next week as we roll this out. We want to keep the communication channels open. Will the road be completely closed? During regular business hours, the road will remain open. Construction crews will only be allowed to close a portion of the road at a time. Why can't the sidewalk be left as is? We've talked about the infrastructure underneath that sidewalk already. Is two-way traffic faster than one-way traffic? Again, one of the benefits of two-way traffic is that it slows people down, so people can actually see in your storefront window as they drive by, and that makes it safer for the pedestrians, makes it more welcoming for pedestrians. Will the sidewalks go more narrow? Not likely. The sidewalk width is as good as designed, and will the trees be removed? And like I said, we'll save as many of the trees as we can. So that was our meeting at the CSUMB, and then this is where we are with our schedule. I'm almost done. Main Street project moving forward. Open house workshop and meeting on conceptual design from the master plans. And then we would come back with a 60% design, we refer to that as a community meeting, and then a detailed design at 90%, and then a final design. And that's estimated to require an hour, pardon me, a year of time from beginning to end. Right, and just last Tuesday, the council approved a $900,000 agreement for that construction design to begin. So we're in the process. We estimate right now 12 million, but we'll know more when we're done with our final design a year from now. And that will go out to bid, and the community will have a chance to buy in on their cost estimate at the time. So this is a bit of a schedule. It's a pretty cool blowout of the different areas that we'll begin on. Again, we'll probably be starting at Alice South and Market Street in the fall of 2018. Then in the spring of 2018, there'll be some utility work looking for those infrastructure pieces that we need to identify. And then the winter 2018, the Lincoln Avenue project, complete streets will occur. And then in the fall of 2019, almost 2 years from now, we'll actually be into the midst of Main Street. And I think the fall is probably wait till January, so after the holidays, so after the 20th Star Wars movie is presented at Maya, before we would begin that. So that's where we're at. And Steve, if you want to take questions down.
Not right quite yet. In fact, if it's okay, again, I want to draw attention to the note cards. So if you don't have a note card or you need one, put your hand in the air. Enid's been very helpful in passing them out. And if you've completed the note cards, please shuttle them to the middle, because we're going to go through and try to answer as many questions as possible. I do want to call out our Director of Community Development. She has been amazing. The Permit Center falls under her reign, as does planning and building. And so if it was just okay, just a minute or two or three or four on housing and some of the things that our planning and building department has done to really prioritize our downtown and do good things. Megan Hunter, please help me invoke her.
Yeah, and I think Don did a great job. I'm going to be really brief and focus mainly on the one key to the downtown vibrancy plan is bringing more market rate housing to the downtown. So we've done a couple of different things to help facilitate some projects, and then we're actually going to be doing some more work in that area. One thing I did want to mention is the city passed an inclusionary housing ordinance in June of this past year, and it was brought to our attention. It was something in the downtown vibrancy plan that downtown had provided a lot of affordable housing, and that we really needed to kind of rebalance the type of housing that was in the downtown and have more market rate housing. So one of the incentives to encourage new market rate housing in the downtown is that the downtown is actually exempted from the inclusionary housing ordinance. And that actually took some, working with our affordable housing partners, but they actually did agree to that. So for the next 5 years, the inclusionary housing ordinance doesn't apply. The other thing that we did is there is a requirement of having a 3 to 4 bedroom mix as we do housing development in the city of Salinas. And as you can understand, in the downtown, typically you're attracting a different type of market. And so we were actually able to amend the zoning code that again exempted the downtown from that 3 to 4 requirement. Moving forward, we did do the housing target market study. There were a number of things that were strategies to help jumpstart market rate housing development in the downtown, or actually maybe in some ways start market rate housing in the downtown. And so we are actually working through some of those recommendations. We're doing a technical analysis on the infrastructure in the downtown to make sure that the infrastructure can support about 100 units per year, 500 in total. That's what our market rate study told us that the market could absorb in the downtown. And so we're doing that as part of a couple of different bigger projects. One is we're looking at an adaptive reuse ordinance, and if some of you know other cities, this has been really successful in getting market rate housing in the downtown, and it would actually make it much more flexible for property owners who own existing buildings to convert particularly the office space above into housing. So that's something that we're really interested in. If you are a property owner, we really much want to work with you on that process. And then, as Don mentioned, the second thing is we're looking at putting out a request for proposal for a developer, likely of Lot 12, to see if we can get a brand new construction on that lot, a housing mixed-use development project. And then finally, with the parking study, we're looking at a parking plan to address parking in the downtown. As many people who may have seen, resurgence in downtowns throughout California, one of the big challenges is parking is really expensive to provide for housing developers, and so we're looking at the downtown as kind of one type of parking that could park multiple users, whether it's residential or commercial. So we're looking at the parking plan to see how that could really be used in conjunction with new residential. So we're really, again, focused on residential. We have our first adaptive reuse project coming online at 401 Monterey, so that's pretty exciting. And one thing that is good about that project is 2 of those units are going to be very low income. So even though it's predominantly market rates, the developer also used density bonus to provide that parking, or to provide those units as well. And lastly, I did want to mention that we did have an outdoor dining incentive program that waived fees for outdoor dining. If that's something you're interested, let me know and I can give you my card. And then the second thing is we're going to be starting over the next summer, we're trying to work with small businesses on marketing and providing some additional small business support. We've recently worked with the Fresno office for small microloans for businesses, but we also, I did want to make a big pitch for the Grow Salinas Fund. We have, the city has a fund to lend money to businesses who want to expand. So that is something also available to you, and we've actually been building up that sort of fund and reaching out to more people. So again, let me know about that. And I'll just give you my email address. It's Megan H at ci.salinas.ca.us, and shoot me an email if you're interested in any of these resources, and I can get back to you on that. Oh, I'm sorry. It's Megan, M-E-G-A-N-H, at ci.salinas.ca.us. And for those of you who've worked with other cities, that's sort of the same the same end for almost all the cities in California. So.
Wow, we're at 35 minutes, and if it looks and feels and sounds like there's a lot of change coming to our downtown, that's the case. This is real. Salinas is becoming a bigger city, and we appreciate you being here to learn and play a role in that. A few other things I'll just say. If you didn't get a chance to sign in when you came in, please sign in. There will be an online survey that goes out. I will also provide some of the emails and the PowerPoints so you can be a part of that. There is an online survey that we put out there as well. So I do want to shed a little light on SCCIA because I've been asked a million times, what is SCCIA? Is it Old Town? Is it Downtown? What is Salinas City Center? These sorts of things. And he doesn't know this yet, but I want to pay some tribute to Joel Panzer. He is a board member for SCCIA, as is Fred. And Joel, do you want to say just a few words? I don't want to put you on the spot too hot, but one of the great things about Joel is Joel put in a lot of time with the Old Town Salinas Association and went on to become a board member for SCCIA and has done a marvelous job sort of branching and really straddling two different organizations that have represented our downtown. Maybe? Yeah.
Well, I appreciate the opportunity. We're here to listen and learn.
Okay. Well, then I'll go to Kevin. So then that's okay. SCCIA has hired a staff member that's played a role in some of the governmental affairs stuff. There is tremendous transition taking place. And again, just as a means to introduce the Salinas City Center Improvement Association, I want to introduce Kevin Dayton and maybe just a few words. And then if Fred or Joel warm up, the mic is yours as well. I just want to open it up to SCCIA. So Kevin, please help me welcome.
I came on board as a government affairs director. I'm a part-time on contract with the Salinas City Center Improvement Association. Came on board October 14th, and I was warned when I introduced myself to the City Council that I had my work cut out for me, and certainly I do. One of the reasons why I was hired is because a lot of you aren't familiar with the Salinas City Center Improvement Association, and some of you who are familiar with it feel that perhaps you aren't being heard enough by this group, or you're uncertain of what it is. So they brought me on board. I've got 25 years of experience in government affairs and strategy and analysis. I'm also a believer in fiscal responsibility and open and transparent government. So the main job that I'm supposed to do is to make sure the downtown vibrancy plan actually happens. And I can tell you from years of looking at other cities is that if you don't keep things focused on making a plan happen, the money eventually is taken away by other interests to other places. And I know already I hear at the City Council some people saying, you know, I don't know if we should be spending $12 million downtown, maybe some other neighborhood should get it instead. And it's my job to make sure that we keep focused and make sure that this plan happens. I'm always worried about future recession and what happens when recession comes and priorities change. So I'm also eager to see this move forward as quickly as possible. But I also hear, I've met some of you already and know that people have different ideas about what should be done. And one thing I'm insisting, for example, as this parking strategy comes along, I want to have an opportunity for people who live and work downtown to talk about what they think about parking. I take copious notes at every single meeting and write them all down. I've got a growing list of the things that need to be done, things that need accountability, and a list of ideas that are going on, and I'm going to be working on those. I'm also dealing with some other local issues of controversy, such as homeless type issues, and I have some ideas on how to try to mediate and work to compromise solutions on those sort of things. I'm all aware of these problems that are out there, and I want to have some of these lingering problems solved so that we can move forward with this vision. So I encourage you to talk to me about Salinas City Center Improvement Association. You're going to be seeing a lot more about me, and please complain to me if you feel that you're not being heard. Thank you.
Great. So again, just to be clear, there was the Old Town Salinas Association. It's now Salinas City Center Improvement Association. There is a board of volunteers that work to direct funds that come in through a property tax assessment that ultimately work towards safety and security and beautification. Those are the two largest outlays. Not to mention, as I shared earlier, dollars can be used to borrow against future dollars. This is a public entity. The meetings are public. They're open to the public. A lot of people attend, and there's some exciting things that the private sort of pools of money will work in concert with public dollars to improve our downtown. So with that said, I want to acknowledge the auditors. Is that right? CSUMB auditors. CSUMB has invested heavily in Salinas. Not just what we've seen on North Main, which used to be Heald College, classrooms and all sorts of expansion there, but our downtown, what used to be the Steinbeck Center, is now CSUMB at Salinas City Center. I want to acknowledge Teresa Slayton. She is the director down there. Please stand, take a bow. just in case you very exciting things planned for that facility, and their master tenant at this point in time is CSUMB at Salinas Center for Arts and Culture. So a former department head of humanities, there's video, cinematography, a very, very dynamic individual that's contributed hugely to the CSUMB today and of tomorrow, has taken up residency at CSUMB, and as a result, programming is through the roof, and this center has truly become a place for vibrancy, for exciting activity, cultural activity, arts activities that draw people downtown. And so to share a bit, very quickly, about what they're doing is Enid, I want to make sure I get it right, Enid Baxter Rice. I got it, okay. Her husband's here, we're glad, and yeah, the whole family, so thank you. Please help me in welcoming Enid.
Hi everybody. I'm in the habit of talking to 18 to 21-year-olds, so I go really fast and I show a lot of pictures, so forgive me. My name's Enid Baxter Rice. I'm a professor of arts at CSUMB. I was chair of cinematic arts until July of this past year, and then I became the interim director of the CSUMB Center for Arts and Culture, which is in the Salinas City Center building for CSUMB. That building right there. That is on November 1st, which was our grand opening. The center's initial priorities this year are to bring together CSUMB and the community, support the education of K-12 university students, and to reflect Salinas' communities and amplify local voices. This came from a survey, informal survey that I did. I'm walking up and down the street, talked to like 200 people. 100 of them responded to me when I talked to them when I took the survey. And we had a series of workshops. This Wednesday is the final one, and you're all welcome to come. You just have to let me know first so I can get you a sandwich. And they're with Nina Simon, who is responsible for the Abbott Square Revitalization Project in downtown Santa Cruz, which some of you might be familiar with. And that was our first workshop. We had really great turnouts, and it's really talking about, are those priorities appropriate? What's missing? What can we do better? And what does success look like? Now I'm going to show you a bunch of pictures. We've been up to, you may have seen Days of the Dead, which is our first exhibition. It was done in collaboration with Alisal Center for the Fine Arts, the Steinbeck Center, Bach June 12, Ohlone Costano and Esalen Nation. Oh gosh, I don't want to forget anybody. Hartnell, CSUMB. There's Dio Mendoza and Jose Ortiz, the co-curators, creating the exhibition. And there's a Frenda that's currently in the lobby. Since the movie Coco came out, people really are taking a lot of pictures with it. And this is us putting up the exhibition. The night of the opening, this is a procession that went down Main Street. And we had a Frida lookalike contest organized by Trish Sullivan that they marched from Hartnell College. This is my favorite Frida. I want to have this slide in every presentation I ever do forever. We had face painting workshops, ballet folklorico dancing. It was very, very well attended, hundreds of people. Later in the month, we had a play reading of Ia, the Esalen Remembered, which is by a local playwright, Chico Flores. This is the Peace Tree. Steve McShane took this picture, I think. That was a really fun celebration. And that is still up, and you can go see that. One thing we're really focusing on is amping up First Fridays is such a great opportunity. So these are some workshops we've been doing on First Fridays. That's our first 2 First Fridays. Also First Friday thing, those are students doing something called Algo Rave. This First Friday was sponsored by the Music and Public Performing Arts Department. It's kind of like rave music created with computers, and it was projected outside. You could hear it down the street. And while inside, we had an open mic, which is going to continue to happen every month. We've also started a series of lunchtime recitals. You may have had your lunchtime disrupted this Friday by loud, beautiful music coming down the street. They already set up chairs. My dream is to work out a way to have local restaurants have a small menu that people can order from and make it like a lunchtime Friday spot. Our first community-based exhibition opened on Tuesday. I can't believe it was less than a week ago. It's called Stories from Salinas. And this is the great grand opening. You can see the young woman in the center of that group is actually in the photograph. And it's pictures of 14 different groups working with youth in Salinas. We had a really fun, wonderful opening event, as you can see, where young people spoke about their experiences. Their moms also spoke, which was very touching, their teachers, and you can see Let's Heal Basketball Academy. So it was very well attended. Every exhibition, I always want to have an element where people can contribute. So that's our Tell Us Your Stories wall, which is now full of stories people have been writing in comic books. And I think I'd probably put this at the end because it's really cute. This exhibition is open until May 4th, and we're going to have a variety of public programming around it. As part of the Dias de Muertos, we also had panel discussions and students reading stories. We're going to have student-organized poetry symposiums. Here's what's coming up. So our First Friday Art Walk, so that's Wednesday, if you want to meet Nina. First Friday Art Walk is going to be each month sponsored by a different department at CSUMB, so you can get to know more about different departments. In the summer, we're going to have an exhibition and celebration of student learning. You get to see all those senior projects that you usually don't really get to see over graduation weekend. And my goal is to have a community artist exhibit every month. I'm currently working with a large group of people to plan a new exhibition centered on foster youth, and another large group working on an exhibition about the history of the Salinas Japanese American flower growers, which is so fascinating. Founders Day projects, we're looking at doing a place names of Salinas project, as well as a deep revamp of History Phone, which I'm really excited about, a Trish Sullivan project we're going to take out to the community again. Theater performances, film screenings. I'm hoping to have Sundance bring their shorts up and show them in the spring. There's a group of environmental studies students working on a community story garden that's going to come from stories collected throughout Salinas, based on people's traditional use of plants for healing and cooking, and then we'll have interpretive science and workshops. And our final thing we're working on with NIDA is our sustainable organizational plan. What are we going to do after this year? And I hope I'll get to tell you all about that in about 6 months. If you want to have an event, Teresa, that's her email. You either would work with Teresa or Teresa and me, but you're always going to work with Teresa, which is great. She's awesome at all of it. It's really fun to work with her. And that's how you can find us, the CSUMB Center for Arts and Culture on Facebook. That's my email address and my website. I look forward to hearing from you. And I hope you'll come see us and help us really get First Fridays going. That's going to be really exciting. Thank you.
Okay, so now comes the fun part, questions. I now have 2 mics going, and what I'm going to do is I'm going to call our speakers up, if that's all right, so that they can answer questions. Let me scoot this over a little bit. I think we include Megan in this, and maybe Kevin as well. We'll see. We'll throw him some hard questions. I did collect up the 3x5 cards, and I'll go through them very quickly. And then if there's more, great. Hand them to David right here. David's a downtown resident, him and his family, and he's been a great resource. He's contributed a lot online to some of this, so thank you very much for your help, David. So let me start with these, and gosh, I almost want to provide you guys with chairs. That's Here's one. There you go. Thank you, Kevin. And grab one more from over there if you could, Kevin, just so that our speakers can be comfortable here. So yeah, and then I've got this great mic that should work. Check. Great. So, and we'll just decide who gets to answer what. How's that? So the very first question is, what's up with the El Rey eyesore? The El Rey Theater on the 300 block. You can see it all the way from Salinas High. So, Don, you want to sit in the hot one or the cold one? Here, okay.
I want to see everything. I'm not sure what's happening with this is on.
Yeah, it should be okay.
So this is the theater where Marilyn Monroe was named the art show queen, first national art show.
No, that was the Sally's, yeah.
That was oh, okay, I have it backwards. So there was a point in time 10 years ago when we were looking at assisting development there by refurbishing the neon sign, but I haven't heard anything. Has community development had any interest in developing that?
No interest, but I would say, and I can't believe I'm forgetting code enforcement's number off the top of my head, but we are actually stepping up code enforcement in the downtown where we can. There are some limitations. Vacant buildings have to present some type of hazard and have to meet some code issues, but I will add that to the list for our code enforcement to check into. We haven't received any proposals. It's a great building, and I think one thing, Don and I are both victims of the end of redevelopment, and so, you know, in the past, there was an opportunity through redevelopment to look at some of these opportunities. I know I worked on rehab and restoration of a historic theater. That was a great project twice. It is a bit of a challenge, but it's something to look at in the future as I've heard that there's discussions at the legislature to maybe institute some type of redevelopment, so that might be an opportunity.
I don't think that answers the question, though. The question about...
If I may ask you to put it down on a 3x5 card.
You're dealing with that.
Okay, so let me walk through all the questions that are on 3x5 cards, and then at the end we'll do open mic. Let me ask the other question, if I may. If we can move on, that's okay. Please, Frank. Yeah.
Privately owned.
Thank you. It's privately owned.
And falling apart.
So there you go. We have code enforcement on it, and I know the city has the opportunity to look at other opportunities to incentivize investment, whether it be the Gross Salinas Fund or something else. Lots of questions here, so I'll move on to the next one, and that was the Dick Bruin building. So an up-to-date question here as to, is there anything happening legal in the Dick Bruin building?
Yeah, so the Dick Bruin building has gone through most of the remediation. It should be completed, I think, by the end of this month. We are in conversation. The Keyhole family owns that building. They have submitted for site plan approval. There are some challenges that we're kind of going back and forth with them on, but there is an interest in addressing the shell first over the next few months. So it is moving forward. I know it's slow for many folks. Unfortunately, again, we have not as much legal remedies as we'd like to sort of push on some of the maintenance issues, but we are beginning to look at that for the downtown. But I can tell you that there is a application that's been submitted and that we're working with them on.
Okay, there's at least two questions here for our friend James Serrano. James Serrano handles transportation for the city, so maybe there's another seat for you, James. That one might be hotter. This is on the topic of two-way traffic, and so we would like to know why two-way traffic is a good idea. And maybe this is Andrew. Andrew's the new guy. He's a transportation engineer, not afraid of microphones. I've seen him in action before. So convince us, Andrew, why two-way traffic will slow people down, will not get people hurt, will be good for merchants.
Sure. So I'll talk a little bit about the two-way traffic conversion and the understanding that the average speed of traffic is expected to slow down with two-way traffic conversion. Travel lanes, part of what gets cooked into the base free flow speed equation is with the travel lane. The addition with this two-way traffic conversion is we have a center line where cars will no longer try to accelerate past or beyond vehicles that are slowing down to park or slowing down to look at shops or merchants or pedestrians. You no longer have that effect where people want to veer into oncoming traffic to accelerate around a slower moving vehicle. So the two-way traffic does help because you have a following speed. You'll be following behind the slowest car. If you're the front car, then obviously you kind of take off if you really wanted to, but you do have narrower lanes. It is a, like I said, it's more access, and that's kind of what we're trying to get for downtown, is improve mobility to the merchants. And so part of the bigger plan, it's not just Main Street that the two-way traffic conversion is proposed for. The larger picture is the Downtown Vibrancy Plan, which is, again, the strategic policy that was adopted in 2015. And there are Salinas Street, Monterey Street, I'm trying to think, part of John Street are all being proposed for two-way traffic conversion, and that is to improve mobility. Rather than circling around the block looking for parking, you have direct access to go down either which direction you want to move. A lot of the case studies I've seen in other downtowns that have implemented two-way conversion is a large percentage of the traffic you see downtown is just people circling the block looking for parking. And so in an effort to kind of, like I said, improve access and improve mobility, is we're providing direct access rather than people trying to circulate the neighborhood. And the other big thing with the two-way traffic conversion is we have these one-lane couplets that move people around downtown. And what we're trying to do is really to slow people down as they pass through downtown, rather than driving right past downtown on Salinas or Monterey Street. So that's the thought process behind the two-way traffic conversion.
Is this data-based and study-based, or is this something you cooked up late night at the Kingston?
Oh, no. So Salinas is actually pretty late in the game with the downtown revitalization. A number of case studies for a lot of other cities have been doing the same thing. They've been revitalizing their downtown, and one of the big parts of that is the two-way traffic conversion. And what we've seen from all these other case studies, whether it's from ITE, which is Institute of Transportation Engineers, or I mean, simply you can Google. I think there was kind of I don't know, an unusual scenario would be the Public Works Director got confused. The city of Salinas, I think it was like Illinois, did the same thing and had a case study that was posted because they're revitalizing their downtown. So they had a two-way traffic conversion, and there's case studies of other cities that have done it. And so what we're seeing is it does improve mobility. It increases sales revenues for the merchants. It's typically a safer facility. It improves security because again, you're drawing more trips, so you have more eyes on the road. The case studies have all been pretty positive with the two-way traffic conversion.
Okay, there's 3 or 4 people here that want to talk with you. Are you available?
Sure.
How do people reach you? And furthermore, is this going to be brought up ancillary to the parking discussion? It seems like the two go hand in hand. I mean, two-way traffic on the 200 and 300 block is up there as far as concerns. And so we have it from our interim public works director that can be on the table as part of the parking. Okay, so how do we get a hold of you?
And I do want to add,
hand her the mic, go ahead.
There's actually, and you can probably look at CalEd, which is the California Economic Development Association, but there's actually quite a bit of case studies and data that I've seen that the conversion really helps businesses. And not only, I think what Andrew mentioned, but you get passed by traffic. Because imagine if you see something, you're driving down Main Street, and all of a sudden you see a business that you didn't notice was there before, and then all of a sudden you get on Monterey, you think you're going to turn around the block, right? And you get on Monterey Street, and it kind of forces you out of town as quickly as possible. You're not coming back. You're just going to, head out of town because it's such a, kind of a pain to turn around. And so I actually have been involved in two cities that did this conversion, 2 parts of cities that did this conversion, and actually sales went up significantly in those areas. So anecdotally, I've experienced it, and it's been
okay. So there will be follow-up for those of you interested in this issue in particular. Let me just work through these other cards. If you signed in tonight, you will get follow-up. There will be the link to the survey, and we will follow up with you as to when the parking and two-way working group will meet, which it sounds like will be January.
Steve, I'd like to say something.
Sure.
I sent an email to city staff after talking to you, Don, and I wrote here, the SCCIA insists on getting public input so it can be incorporated or addressed in the SCCIA formal letter to the city about the parking strategic plan. Please schedule the eventual city council presentation and discussion with that request from SCCIA in mind.
Okay.
So we're going to make sure, but the one thing is, when this parking meeting does happen, and I think, Steve, you're thinking about this, please come with facts, studies. Don't come with feelings that, you don't like it, because when the arguments are made about this, we're going to need data. This has got to be data-based. Nobody likes change because we're comfortable with it. So you got to come with more than that. Thank you.
Okay, so maybe back to Dawn, because he was very involved in this question about how, convince me that this is not some cookie cutter boilerplate piece of trash from San Diego or some consultant that has basically written this for hundreds of communities all over the nation. How do we keep our identity, and that this is not Salinas, but this is really the gas lamp in San Diego airbrushed over with Salinas on the cover?
We hired consultants to help us with the technical issues. I have to say, Steve, I wrote a lot of this myself. If consultants are only so good. And when we brought this to the council, I think those of us who had worked on it for so many months came in support of it and came to say, this is from our heart. And I have to tell you, consultants are only so good that we wrote that ourselves. We wrote that here downtown.
Understood. Thank you. Okay, no, keep going. We're on a roll here. Several questions about bicycles. Worried about bicycle traffic in the downtown corridor, the downtown district. It's hard enough as it is. Bicycles are on the sidewalks. How can we, last night there were 2 additional pedestrian fatalities. Pedestrians and bicyclists are an growing endangered species in Salinas, and how will they have a better life in the downtown district?
Sure, I can talk to that a little bit. So part of the Main Street project, there isn't a lot for the cyclists. I think we're looking at putting in sharrows to get people to their destination on the downtown. A sharrow is a Class 3 facility. You see it on the pavement every so often, maybe residentials mostly, but it's where the cyclists will share the lane with the vehicular traffic. It works with slower moving facilities. In the downtown area, we don't want cyclists on the sidewalk, but we would encourage them to get to their destination, and that would be through the vehicular traffic on Main Street. They'd move just like a vehicle would down the street. But the big cyclist facilities that are coming in really are more on the Alisal and Lincoln project. Those are the next 2 projects that are coming in. We're putting in buffered bike lanes that are going to move down the corridor. The Alisal Street is our big connection to the Monterey and Seaside community, but that's how they're going to be coming into our downtown. And so we're putting in buffered bike lanes. Parking will be maintained, but we're adding we're adding left turn pockets to kind of make the turn movements a little safer and make sure that the right of way is understood as bicyclists and vehicular traffic moves throughout the intersection. Pedestrians, I know, is a growing concern. We're looking more at our facilities and how we can make improvements to enhance safety. In the downtown area, the intersection we're proposing pedestrian exclusive phasing, which is pretty new in Salinas. If you've been to San Jose or maybe some other cities, you may have seen it before, but it's a phase where vehicular traffic all comes to a stop on all approaches, and pedestrians are allowed to cross any which direction they want. If you want to go diagonally, you don't have to wait for 2 cycles at the intersection to move across to your destination. You can walk directly across the intersection, free from vehicular traffic, and the vehicles no longer have to yield to pedestrians because they're on their own phase. And so, as pedestrians get to the intersection, you hit the call button, vehicles can clear the intersection, and then you can move directly to your destination. So we're trying to enhance the pedestrian facilities in that way in downtown.
Okay. Thank you very much.
You can't enhance pedestrian facilities when you don't have
Europe has self-cleaning public toilets. What are the chances of having a bathroom for public use? Can this plan include public toilets, please? I don't know who can answer that. Don gets the tough questions. Public toilets in the downtown district.
So,
can this plan include it?
Public toilets were budgeted and they can be made part of our parking facilities. That's the best way to do it. We took a private toilet in the Monterey Street garage and converted it to a public toilet. It was a good use of funds. And that's open as late as Maya Cinemas is open. But that's only on the 100 block, and obviously we need a public toilet on each block.
Got it.
There are solutions for that. I think they would be incorporated into our parking facilities as they get built.
Okay, it's on the table. It's on the table. Okay, you heard it here. Will making the downtown customers pay for parking hurt or help downtown economics? And I might be jumping the gun with the parking advisory and 2-way committee that's being pulled together, but can you speak to paid parking in the downtown?
So I was kicked out of town in 2009 and had to walk back to the King City because I proposed paid parking without having a complete model. And the complete model includes enforcement, includes a little bit of paid parking, and then other ways of making revenue with your parking structure. So if we can come forward with a complete plan, then the intent is to have a governing body on parking that includes merchants and property owners, so that this surplus revenue is then put back into the downtown to maintain some of the parking facilities. This is the model used in Ventura and Pasadena and other successful downtowns, where the money paid into parking goes right back into the property district's fund.
Okay. Obviously, it's being looked at and will be discussed in this committee that will be set up.
So it needs to be rolled out slowly. I wouldn't see any dramatic changes in the near future.
And will the committee be behind a curtain? Are we talking anybody in this room could be a part of the parking?
There would be open public meetings.
Okay, open public meetings.
And I will qualify that with one thing. The 50 cents in the Monterey Street garage is 12 years old. And that needs to change ASAP. Our parking district, Steve, is currently a $500,000 deficit on the building.
Yeah, I'm aware of that. Yep.
So we've got to fix that Band-Aid first, but then moving forward.
Hey, Don, I was going to mention on the parking that a lot of studies have been done, and I think there's the cost of the high cost of subsidized parking or something, free parking. But one thing that they did find in the data is really clear, that when you have free parking, who parks in the free parking are mostly employees and not customers. And so I think, merchants have to look at that. Who's using your parking in front? Are you, having people who are parking there all day? And although we've stepped up parking enforcement, it's still, people are there probably largely beyond that time frame. So that's something I think the data, when you discuss it more, we'll pull that out.
While the community development director has the mic in her hand, let me ask her this question. During this activity, during redevelopment, what we're talking about of housing, will elevation or height levels be considered? What are they now for stores or for housing? Will there be an elevation minimum enacted? And what is the density we're talking about? Are we 35 units per acre, 50 units per acre?
Yeah, so depending on where you are in the downtown, there are some areas that actually have pretty high densities, like I want to say 80 units per acre. Okay. I think where there are some areas in the downtown that have surprisingly low height limits. One is Monterey. I think the height restriction is 50 feet. And so yes, that has to be considered. And so we're looking at, again, kind of some quick things to jumpstart housing in the downtown, but we're also working on a general plan update that can also maybe be a little bit more aggressive in changing densities and heights, should that be a desire of the community and city council, of course.
Do you have any update on the Greyhound building? I know we touched on the Bruin building, but any up-to-date information on the owners of the Greyhound and the Bruin and what can be done to sort of jumpstart development in those areas?
Yeah, so there is interest, and we have been in conversation with the owners of the Greyhound. They also are looking to do a housing project there. We're doing our best to try to help, and we're spending quite a bit of time of staff discussing, how to facilitate redevelopment. And we've even put them in touch with NDC, which is National Development Corporation, which is a nonprofit organization to look at different financing streams to do both. So we are working, and hopefully we can get those projects. We do understand how key they are to the downtown development.
Okay, maybe back to Dawn. Just more words on the sidewalks. Again, a lot of concern over what has been termed ripping up the sidewalks. These visions of every last square foot of sidewalk being ripped up. How much ripping are we talking about? And speak to the infrastructure that's in there. How old is some of it? Leaking, inaccessible electricity, and there's even a suggestion here for fiber optic cable and other wireless or internet related sort of improvements to downtown.
So right now, we have the terracotta color that is cracked and needs to be replaced, very difficult to match. So we have different colors of sidewalk. And then below that we have water, electricity, and then other needs for infrastructure that's how we get electricity to light our trees and to light our streets, and that's where the water comes from to water the plants. I was out in East Salinas today and they're asking me about their bulb-outs on Market Street. There's no irrigation in those bulb-outs. So we're fortunate to have that infrastructure. We need to uncover it all and dig it all up. So yeah, it'll be a mess for a while. It'll be a mess for a while, and we'll take it to the curb. We're not changing the size of the sidewalk, but we'll probably have to take
Say that one more time.
We'll take it to the curb from the building, from the storefront.
So they're not getting skinnier?
No, we're not changing the width of the sidewalks.
Okay, that's another concern. Okay, good.
No, we're not changing the width of the sidewalks, but we want to do it so that it all looks uniform, so that it all looks brand new. That's the whole idea. We don't want to have this cloak work. No offense to cloak people.
Okay. Now back to Megan, maybe. Any thoughts on bringing in chain stores such as Urban Outfitters, Sephora, or other big retailers? There is an interest in that addition to our mix, in addition to buy local and small.
Yeah, and this is where I think SCCIA, really comes in, and some of the merchants, because I think what makes the downtown of Salinas really unique are these really kind of unique stores and shops. And once you start bringing in the chains, I think Old Town Pasadena is nice, but I remember when it was a lot more eclectic, and now it's, all of these kind of chain stores, and it sort of changed the character. So in some ways, maybe it looks more attractive, but in other ways, it lost a little bit of its heart. So I think that's something that we would really look for community feedback on what is the right mix of, those unique stores with a few chains sprinkled in, and we don't want to lose that character.
Okay, and then back, Megan, to you. There's mention here of the vibrancy plan. Will the downtown miss out as there's all this focus placed on the future growth area, shopping centers in South Salinas, other parts of the city where specific and targeted areas may wash out downtown?
I don't think so, because there's a real, I can tell you, there's a lot of developers who are interested in the downtown, and I really think that the key is housing. Once you have a residential, in the downtown, it kind of, creates this like 24-hour energized place. And we're having a lot of developers who want to build housing in the downtown, and I think that's the key. That will help sustain the businesses. It'll help create an energy that can't exist anywhere else. Downtown and the Alisal are the two most vibrant, areas in the city, and have huge potential. And I think, the places like Northridge and some of the big blocks, it's good for people who are, doing shopping for toilet paper, but it's not good for the unique gifts or, the nice restaurant experiences or the downtown. And as we've seen downtowns explode across the country, I think Salinas is really poised, and it's really interesting to hear from a lot of the consultants who are coming to look at the downtown to say what good bones we have. And there are already, I think, some really cool restaurants and shops, so I think what we need is the residential mix.
Okay, and since it's going...
Yes, I would like to speak to on this.
Yeah,
it is my job as a Government Affairs Director for SCCIA to make sure that downtown isn't forgotten and that these target areas aren't distracting from downtown development. I don't believe in zero-sum economics. I actually believe that the development of these target areas will actually enhance business opportunities in housing in downtown. It works together as a regional whole. So I'm not a subscriber of that, but there's no way we're going to be resisting quite fiercely if downtown starts getting ignored for other new, shinier places.
So while you've got the mic, Kevin, some questions here about what happened to Hope Services. Specifically, first it starts out, did you want to say something?
Yeah, I just wanted to say, the one thing I forgot about downtown, which I think is really exciting, is downtowns are somewhat immune to the shopping online phenomenon. So I think that's why, you know, investment in downtown is really key.
Very well said. Thanks for adding that point. So back to Kevin. Let me ask one question. First and foremost, the tree lights are beautiful, beautiful, beautiful. Thank you, thank you, thank you, thank you. Who is in charge of sidewalk and upkeep? I keep seeing photos online and encountering trash and what happened to Hope Services. Yeah, and then we talk about parking, but Hope Services and trash, and what, is Hope still here downtown?
You know, they are in one of the outer zones, and unfortunately, I can't go into great detail about this because coming in on October 14th, I missed all of the context regarding
we have an upkeep and the contract you have.
But I know, I hear about it all the time. I hear the complaints. The board of SCCIA is very aware of them.
They're taking them seriously
about this. Yes. And I'll also note here that regarding the Christmas lights, thank you so much for your help in getting through the permitting process to get those up on time. That was a little behind the scenes work that right, the little things that go on behind the scenes that you may not know about, but there's a little crisis there that got resolved perfectly thanks to staff and Councilman McShane working perfectly together.
Just because this is a hot question, I mean, I can't even touch this note card, it's so hot. Hope Services, is there a contract? Is it month to month? I mean, can you speak at all to more detail on Hope Services, or do we just
Ken,
move on?
Would you like to answer the details about this contract since I've actually never seen it?
Yeah, Hope has month to month in June too.
Okay, so here, hand that to Ken real quick. Good, thank you, Jen.
Hope has a contract with Salinas City Center for Tier 2, which is outside of the downtown streets. They still, business as usual. They do a terrific job.
Why aren't they here? Why aren't they here any longer on the downtown Main Street? I understand they're a Tier 2, but what removed them from our tier?
Anything else you want to add?
The New Image Group provides services they can't. And so the board felt strongly about having those additional services.
So the board made that decision, just so I understand that clearly, the board made that decision?
Yes.
Without any inquiry from the merchants, correct? Because I'll tell you what, I have to pick up fecal matter in front of my storefront weekly. Those people did a job behind the scenes that I don't think anybody wants to acknowledge. They were gracious people. They greeted you every day with a smile. And I'll tell you, they were there before they probably punched a time clock. Cleaning up what's not being cleaned up now. So it saddens me as a merchant. I'm not sure who made that decision, but they were wonderful people, and I can only speak for myself. I miss that crew tremendously. They may not have been the image that maybe some people, Salinas or whoever, may have liked, but you know what? You can't judge a book by the cover.
Thank you for being here, and I think the Hope thing is still, I mean, I'm sure Kevin's inbox is still filling up, and obviously we heard it's month to month, and as shared earlier, safety and security, beautification. And beautification is a huge budget within SCCIA. So every time there's feedback, photographs, calls, that gets related. So the feedback, the pressure, and the enthusiasm for a clean and safe downtown is being listened to. So thank you for responding to that. One last question before I'm going to put a few people on the spot. Did Frank Savino leave?
Yes.
Okay, he did. All right, okay, fine. Outreach. Any last words on next steps? I mean, I know you put the slide up, Dawn, but there's a tremendous amount of people here that want to continue to be informed on, you know, what's coming down the pike, the whole process. Maybe you can all chime in on that. Revisit, you know, again, parking and the two-way, not to mention the outreach process. So
we have a number of community outreach events we're trying to plan. Right now, it's maybe some shameless pandering, is we're trying to get a open house type workshop in mid-January. We were trying to actually get our West Wing conference room reserved to have an all-day event where a consultant, some of the public works employees would be able to meet with stakeholders, merchants, property owners, anyone who wants to be involved in the process to kind of overview the master plan, try to work out some of the design details that are going to be coming up, get input on the design process. We'll be moving through a I think as we saw in the slideshow earlier, an iterative process as we kind of refine the design and get near 100% design plans. We're looking at maybe doing a community meeting between each step in the design process as we go from conceptual design, detailed design, to final design. So the first step of that is kind of this open house workshop we're looking to do in mid-January. We're open to suggestions if anyone's interested in hosting right on Main Street for, like I said, the public works employees to kind of set up maybe in the back of the shop where we can talk to members of the community and again, stakeholders. We're looking for a venue because our West Wing conference is busy.
Okay, thank you. Anything else you want to add, Don, or are we good?
No, that's fine.
Okay, so let's see. Let me just borrow the mic here, and I saw Frank leave. Let me start with SCCIA. Is there anybody from the SCCIA board that wants to say anything at all?
Well,
okay, here, just.
Those of us that attended tonight from the board, we're here to listen. And we're hearing a few things we haven't heard before. But we're hearing strong opinions about things we have heard before. Yeah, it's all right, I can talk. And we appreciate it.
Try to.
Is that better? Well, not to repeat it, but we're working really hard. We're making mistakes. We see that. And the whole thing got brought up tonight. And that's why we're debating right now. We're hard in debate on that. We're not in agreement on the board on how to deal with either bringing the whole back down to the 100, 200, 300 block, switching out the other people. But the thought was, when we made that decision, that perhaps we could get a group in whose productivity would be maybe twice as good at that point. And we didn't want to lose Hope, the New Hope group. So we put them on the perimeter areas with a thought that we'll give these guys a try, and if it doesn't work out, we'll bring the New Hope back downtown. Now I tried to float an idea at a meeting here not very long ago, a week ago. Why don't we just flip-flop them? But the committee didn't agree with that concept, so we're still floating that one.
You're on it.
Yeah,
okay,
that's it.
Thanks for responding to that very much. Just because we're near the end and there's a few other folks in the audience, I'll come to you in just a second. I want to bring some attention to my friend David Mack here. David is a planner in the city of Marina. He worked with the county of Monterey. He's a resident of downtown. And if there's just anything you would share, that you asked some good questions, any observations? I mean, I guess because you're a resident and you oftentimes are jabbing a bit, I don't cast judgment on our staff, but what do you have to say about some of this stuff?
Thank you, Steve. I didn't expect this, but as Steve said, full disclosure, I'm a professional planner with 13 years of experience. I'm a resident of Salinas. I'm actually writing the downtown plan for Marina, which is why I'm here, just to kind of see what Salinas is doing. But not to lobby for anybody. Make sure you are involved in the public process. Good, bad, or indifferent. Become involved in the public process. That is why it is called public. As a planner now with Marina, city staff, and Don and Steve know this, I haven't always seen eye to eye with them, but if they don't hear your concerns, they don't hear your ideas presented in a civil way, then it's not a help to you as a business owner, a merchant, a resident, or anybody else. Stay involved. That's one of the concerns I expressed to Steve, is that I don't think this process has been transparent enough or involved enough people. So that's the only thing I will add as a resident.
Cool. No, thank you very much. Okay, real quick, and then I want to close it up with Steve Lundeen. He didn't know I was going to call him out, but
there are a lot of issues, but the main issue to me is the two-way streets. The 300 and 200 block are doing just fine. It's safe to cross. The 100 block, I'm not sure of the exact number, but there's at least 5 restaurants there. 1 beer truck, 1 FedEx truck. God forbid there's 2 of them, and the world stops. But that is such a bad idea. And the other thing you didn't address was anything about handicap parking. I work at the Alliance for Aging. Everybody there is old. And most of us have canes or wheelchairs or walkers.
Nothing wrong with being old.
No, but when there's only one handicap spot for the whole block.
Got it. Okay.
And you haven't answered that already.
Okay, yeah, we'll come back to Elway real quick. Handicap parking as part of this plan, will it be talked about as part of our parking subcommittee? And also, while I can, because you work at Alliance on Aging, one of the other comments that came up was that the entire Alliance on Aging staff parks on Main Street and eats up the whole block so that customers can't get to the businesses. So,
I brought that up at the last
okay,
meeting.
so maybe a comment or two. Let's just, okay.
So yes, details of the parking will be worked out in the design phase, and we are paying attention to where there potentially could be loading zones. So a lot of these details are the details that actually get worked out in the final design. And so the larger parking study will be taking place kind of for downtown overall, but specific to the Main Street project, yes, we are looking into the details of where to locate ADA stalls, where to locate loading zones. That way a delivery truck or an Uber doesn't block up traffic. But we are looking to having those on each block, and that way it's not too disruptive. We're still providing ADA access, shortest path of travel to get to the merchants. And so those details get worked out in the final design.
Okay, again and again, I'll just mention that in the back, if you sign into this meeting, we'll follow up and we'll let you know some of the details as to the contact information for some of these folks. And one thing Megan scribbled down was the importance of reporting. If we don't hear from you, then we can't manage the challenge. And I know some of you call frequently, and you might say, oh gosh, I've never heard, my voice doesn't matter, I'm going to go jump off a bridge. And we don't want you to jump off a bridge. We do want to hear from you. Call again, call again. My cell phone number is on my business card. Text me like crazy. That's what I'm here for. What we don't know, we can't study, we can't follow up on. So when you see trash, when you see urine, when you're worried for your safety, let us know. We're on it, like we're doing our best. So that's very important. Code enforcement is at its best yet. 758-7157. 758-7157. I'll include that in the notes that are sent out from tonight. I called out Steve Lundeen because he has the reins on the First United Methodist Church. And if you haven't heard of the church or been a party to some of the excitement associated with their services, then he's here to just say a word or two. And I know that the question would come up as to homelessness. What is the city doing? Is the city working with the United Methodist Church? Very quick, few words. Steve and Don, why don't we start with Steve? Steve, what's going on down there in very few words?
We're trying to work with, we are working with the city, the library, planning department, and having conversations with the SCCIA. So we're all about networking and taking care of the most vulnerable people in our community. And that's the voice that I'm trying to represent.
And just so that it's clear, you see about 100 clients a day, and you're not open at night, obviously.
We open at 6 a.m. every morning for mainly restroom use and breakfast. We serve lunch. We close at 1 o'clock. We have resources, an art room, a computer room, and we serve between 100 and 200 meals a day.
Okay, thank you. Megan first and then Dawn. Okay.
Yeah, so I think the city has really rethought homelessness, and I think what we're trying to do is really focus on what works and the data. And we've been really pushing in various ways. First of all, the solution to homelessness is to get people housed. So we have really, really pushed on trying to push housing navigations, identify new housing opportunities. We have the Mid-Penn project, which is going to be 90 units of permanent supportive housing. We are also working on a case management project with the library, with the Methodist Church, because we recognize how difficult the Lincoln corridor has gotten. to really try to get folks, again, off the street, get them in case management, get them the services that they need. And we've looked at some really successful models more recently that combine homeless services and health care. And so I know we're working with the county. The other thing is we think that there needs to be a both permanent housing and a permanent homeless shelter. And we're working with the county to have that at 1220 Natividad, where the hospital is, where there's a potential for a lot more services. So the city has taken a great, under the leadership of City Council and the mayor to push that, which will help downtown.
Thank you, Megan. And now, Dawn, whenever there's heavy lifting and deep questions on homelessness, it typically goes to Dawn. Dawn has played a role in this issue for years, and so anything else you can add to...
Dawn's role is changing.
Dawn's role is changing.
Dawn's about to become a father, so I'm afraid I have to leave. I'm transitioning more in public works to the property manager, and that's something that I've done. I've been managing the properties at the train station in downtown, and as you know, Saturday night we had a fire next to City Hall.
Yep.
Yeah, 3 windows. And we've had fire at the Steinbeck Center, at the Steinbeck Library, and other places. And so last Tuesday night we did in Florida Master Services Agreement for unarmed security, and that was for SCCIA and for the city to contract with and to manage our properties better. But we're trying to collect information, and now it goes to our housing division, and our housing division has hands-on. You forgot to mention that we do have that shelter on LSL. And so we are working together. I think the city has better aligned its resources both in terms of property management and in homeless services as it has been since I've worked here for 15 years.
I want to thank Dawn. He does need to go be a father. He's got to pick up his son, and I want to make sure we let him do that. Having James and Andrew here and myself, we can still respond to questions. Just in closing, maybe a couple of last words. Again, sign in the back. Business cards, I've got a brochure back there. Also, this is the quiet announcement for a city holiday home lighting tour. There are flyers in the back. There's a very limited number of seats left. We have 3 buses, and we travel all over the city. It's free, and we look at home lighting. It is the coolest thing. I can only hope that Supervisor Robert Rivas will join us as well, and Jenna's going to really kill me for this, but there is a merchant mixer tomorrow night. The first drink is on SCCIA, so I hope you're ready for it. There's flyers in the back, and Jenna will be there as well. I think this was good. Everybody that stuck around, was there value to tonight? Did you learn something?
El Rey.
Okay, thank you. The El Rey Theater. Now, just know that I have gotten hundreds of emails, it seems, on the El Rey Theater. If we're not putting enough pressure on the owners of the El Rey to do something with it, then we can always put more. They're not in town. They're not here. They're absentee landlords, and that thing has got more health and safety issues than the building is worth, probably 3 times over.
Right?
It's very empty, and it'll probably be empty until someone with a kind heart can step forward to do something nice with it or repurpose it. So it's not for sale, but if you'd like to make an offer, see me after the meeting, and I would be happy to connect you with the owner. I could probably be a paid real estate agent for the owner. That's another story. So just know that there's some time and some gentle pressure, and that's the El Rey. So I'm glad everybody came tonight, and I'm glad that everybody was respectful. Again, I want to acknowledge Farm Fresh Deli and Cafe. They did all the cookies and the coffee for tonight. I thought that was wonderful. I certainly want to acknowledge our speakers. And then maybe one last announcement. Some of you may have heard, maybe not, that there is a retirement coming from our SCCIA Executive Director, Ken Steen. Ken was a banker. He left banking and came into our Old Town board, served on the board with distinction, and became the manager at a very critical time. And some of you may want to take out all of your problems on Ken. Ken is a great problem solver, and he takes challenges from the outside really well. And so just publicly, in his retirement, I picked up this shower mic for him so that he can really enjoy his retirement in the shower and sing to your favorite songs. So please help me as Ken stands and we acknowledge him for his work. there will be a more formal event, whether it's just, you know, Thursday night for karaoke at King's Den or something a little bit more respectful. But whatever it be, the shower mic will play it. Thanks for coming, and stick around, have a brownie. The surveys tournament up here. Please turn in your surveys up here if you haven't already. These are what they look like. Fold them in half and bring them on up, and we'll take them. Thank you very, very much.